So Friday's episode of the podcast was called The Battle Plan. And this is the conclusion to our Talking to God series. So we started off with talking to God, then we talked about listening to God, then we talked about the various different voices that you could hear by opening yourself up to listening. And now we're at the point where you've heard something, but you don't know what it means. Sometimes, very rarely from my experience, you will hear something very specific and you'll know exactly what it is that you're supposed to be doing. A lot of the times you will get something that you're not quite sure what to do with. And what the battle plan is it's a little bit of a compromise. So in a perfect world, what you want to do is you want to take these triggers and you want to solve them in the presence of other believers, because you will be able to leverage their experience and their expertise into whittling down the idea to its core, and then you'll be able to attack that core with precision. Doing it on your own, it's a little bit sloppy, it's a little bit risky, but let's be honest, if that's the only option you have, it's better than nothing. So what I wanted to do was expose you to the process that we use in the groups that I facilitate, and at least give you the option to explore it on your own. If you want help with this, reach out to me. I've been facilitating for a very long time. I am very, very good at it. We will get to the bottom of your issue. I will help you wrestle with it. But if you want to wrestle with it on your own, if you want to grow and learn in that way, you have the ability to do so with this worksheet. Again, exposing these ideas to other believers and subjecting yourself to their refinement is the better way to do this. But if you don't have that option, if you're on your own, this is better than nothing. And it will at least get you going. Once you have some experience with this, I've been facilitating these types of groups for a long time now. The battle plan is essentially what I do. Now, I do most of it in my head. I don't always write it down because a lot of the times I'll just wrestle through it and figure it out as I go. I don't need to take the time to sit and write it out and figure it all out. But if you're new to the process, I do think that would be helpful. And having a record of saying, here's what I thought, here's what I did, here's how it worked out. Maybe it was God's voice, maybe it wasn't. The ability to have a record of saying, okay, here's what I thought in the moment, here's what I think now, really does give you a clarity that I think is essential for figuring out God's voice in the long run. If you are less precise about it and you say, I think I hear God's voice pretty clearly, but 4 out of 5 times you say, yeah, that wasn't really him. You want that level of precision as you're figuring this out, particularly if you're on your own. If you don't have other people stepping into your life and saying, yeah, that's not God, then you're going to struggle with this a lot. Or on the flip side, you could say, I don't know. Let's take a risk on this one and pretend that it is God's voice. Let's go through the battle plan. Let's do the whole thing. 6 months later, look at it and go, yeah, that was something that I would have skipped over if I hadn't taken the risk. And that really is what I'm trying to encourage people to do with this series. You will never know what God is trying to tell you if you don't respond to it. So faith is action. If God says, cross the street, go talk to that guy, you can say, oh, I agree with that. But if you don't do anything, you're not actually living out the belief. You say, I agree, I'm just going to stand here and do nothing. Until you cross the street, until you take the risk and say, hi, I don't know what happens next, right? And a lot of times that's the way God's worked. He'll tell you to do something without giving you any of the details. He'll just say, go, do the thing. And you'll say, I don't want to do the thing because it's weird and scary and I don't understand it. But if you never do it, you don't generate the feedback. And what we're trying to do with the battle plan is to generate that feedback. We can say, I looked at this, didn't work. I don't think this was God's voice. Or I did this crazy thing and now this happened. The goal is to generate feedback and to refine the skill of listening to God's voice. Listening to God's voice is a skill that you develop over time, but only if you are honest with yourself and only if you pay attention to things as you go. If you're just kind of haphazardly doing things and hoping that good things happen on the back end, That's not refining, that's wandering. And maybe you'll wander in and out of doing what God wants you to do, and that's probably better than nothing. But the more that you can refine what you are hearing from him, the better off you're going to be. And this is one of the ideas that I've really been wrestling with lately that I think is really interesting, and I don't quite know how it fits in the material yet, is this idea of submitting yourself to something that you cannot understand and cannot control, right? So if you say, I'm going to do this diet, or I've got this other plan that I'm going to do, you understand what it is you're subjecting yourself to at the outset. You say, I'm going to eat these foods, I'm going to exercise in this way, or hey, I've got this plan to grow my business, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, and we'll see what happens. When you subject yourself to something that you don't understand, you don't get any of that. You don't get to say, here's the step-by-step process. You say, God, here I am, use me. Talk to me, show me what I'm supposed to do. And then you do it. And God shows up and he tells you to do something, and you do it or you don't. And a lot of the times you won't be told why. He'll say, go do the thing. You'll say, okay. And whether you do it or not will determine whether or not you get the blessing, and whether or not on the back end you get the clarity of knowing what it is, of why he asks you to do the thing. So this morning I went on a walk. I often walk in the morning and pray and talk to God, do all the stuff. And I was thinking about how I could not possibly have navigated my life to where it is. I am not capable of the things that got me to where I am. Now, I'm capable of a lot. I think that I contributed a lot to the process, but God's hand was in it. And by submitting myself to him, even unaware of what was going to happen or where any of this was go, it forced me in the moment to feel a lot of anxiety, to feel a lot of fear, to say, God, I'm going to do these crazy things, but I don't understand them. And on the back end, I get a look and go, oh, wow, God, like, it's great. Like, looking back, you get the clarity. You get to say, God, now I see some of what you were doing. Probably not even all of it, but I get to see some of it. And you allowed me to participate in that because I took the risk and stepped out and into situations that I did not understand at all. And I think that that is so unbearably cool that he allows us to participate in the amazing things that he is doing. Now, we get to opt in or opt out. As a Christian, you can say, no, this is all weird and scary and I don't want to do it. I don't want to go out there and make mistakes. I don't want to think that I'm doing God's will and end up doing something that I don't like. That's a choice you get to make. You get to decide that. But you won't get the upside. Like, yeah, it's weird and it's hard to take risks and do things that you don't understand, but the amount of cool things that happen, just unbearably cool things that come as a result of obedience to the submission to God in ways that you don't understand, is incredible. I cannot recommend it enough. So this is an idea that I'm wrestling with because a lot of times people are willing to submit to things if there's a clarity around what it is and how it behaves. And God refuses to give that clarity. You don't get to understand him. You don't get to know what he's going to do next. You don't get to predict him with any level of certainty. So that is scary. And I do understand that. And to be fair, I'm wired in such a way that I find that exciting. But I understand being hesitant as well. And so kind of like last week where I'm worried about tearing apart the artificial foundation, I'm also worried about telling people to step out in faith and make some mistakes, because that is absolutely what you will do when you try to listen to God and try to respond to him. You will make mistakes. You will do it wrong. But the times that you do it right, it's really, really something else. And I cannot encourage it enough. This is where I want men to be going. This is where I want this teaching to be going, is guys to be saying, there's more to this Christian thing. There's more to this God thing, and I want to pursue it, and I want the benefits, and I want to be able to look at my life on my deathbed and go, what was that? And I think that with God, you get those opportunities. Without him, maybe not. But I think that certainly if he's running the ship, you are going to be surprised and delighted in the process. So that's what I've been thinking about. Next week is the mind episode. And if you have the opportunity to listen to that, I think you should. This is one of a handful of topics that I think that I really know something about. I went from suffering with anxiety most of my life to having now not dealt with it in 6 years and having a clear mind and mental stability. I really think that this is an issue that I have taken full control of in my life. And I cannot wait to get this episode out there, because a lot of the men that I work with struggle with a lot of the things that we're going to be directly addressing. And I think that it will be really important. And if those numbers extrapolate, men are in bad shape. If my sample is any indication, guys really, really need this material. And it's not going to be definitive. I'm not going to tell you necessarily what to do, but I'm going to share a lot of my journey and how I went from crippling anxiety to a place of mental peace and stability. And I cannot wait for you guys to join me on that. So the next episode comes out on Friday. It should be a very, very good one. And I'll see you next week. Thanks.